Senator Cassidy. So, as Attorney General Racine pointed out, Amazon controls 50 to 70% of the $430 billion market online for consumer goods. Prices for everything from light bulbs to mattresses to motor oil are going up on Amazon. And the question is, why is that happening? A huge part of the reason is Amazon's deliberate exploitation of its market dominance to squeeze more dollars out of consumers and third-party sellers alike. In other words, Amazon's taking a big bite out of the middle. So one of our witnesses, Attorney General Racine, filed a lawsuit this year against Amazon for this very reason. And a particular focus of the lawsuit is the impact of something that Amazon calls its fair pricing policy. And if I can, Attorney General Racine, I'd like to follow up on the example you gave to illustrate this policy. So let's say if I make earphones and sell them for $100 on my own website, I just want to make sure we're clear on all this. If I want to sell them on Amazon to access this huge marketplace online and extend my reach, I have to pay Amazon's fees and agree to their terms. And my understanding is that Amazon's fees can be as high as 40% of the cost of these goods. So thanks to these fees, let's just pick that example, I have to increase my prices to ensure that I can still turn a profit. So now instead of charging $100 for these earphones, I may now have to charge $140. But the worst part is I now also have to charge $140 on my own website and on every other platform where I'm trying to sell my headphones. These inflated prices crush American consumers. So, Attorney General Racine, I want to return to your opening remarks. I wanted to go back over the example you talked about, but you also mentioned how Amazon forces wholesalers to pay more as well. So I did the consumer part just there. Can you say a little more about how they're doing this with other wholesalers as well?
Sure. And you've captured it exactly right, Senator, which of course is no surprise to me. With respect to wholesalers, Amazon, again, forces these first-party sellers, I'll call them, to reach an agreement with them in regards to what the price is going to be. And here's the deal. If Amazon lowers its retail prices to match or beat a lower price for that initial good on the online marketplace, the wholesaler is forced to pay Amazon the difference between the agreed upon profit that they made, that they entered with Amazon, and the money that Amazon realizes after it lowers the retail price. In short, Amazon has profit protection at the cost of the first party seller. I do feel compelled to also mention, and don't take my word for it, look at the April 23rd, 2020 Wall Street Journal article written by Dana Mattioli that talks about how Amazon has scooped up data from its own sellers, these first-party sellers, to launch competing products. So not only are they crushing these first-party sellers with these unlawful agreements, that's what we allege, but they're also using data around the popularity and selling of these products to launch competitive products against these first-party sellers. Amazon can't win enough without cheating, and that's why we're suing them.
So, this just knocks me out. In a typical collusion case like price fixing, competitors illegally agree to charge higher prices. And when they get caught, they can actually go to jail under federal law. But Amazon accomplishes the same thing in-house. And its higher fees are inflating prices on its own platform as well as in stores and other websites through these anti-competitive contract provisions with third-party sellers. And the result is prices go up for millions of Americans, and Americans can't see it. Because there's no place else to do the price comparison to see what's happening here. This price increase is entirely hidden from consumers. The price
Indeed.
looks the same wherever they go. And it just shows up as inflation. And Amazon...
Senator, can I give you numbers?
Please.
Because I think it's going to make your point. So between 2014 and 2020, Amazon's revenue from third-party seller fees and charges grew from $11.75 billion to over $80 billion. This year, Amazon is estimated to reap over $121 billion in fees from third-party sellers. They're doing this because it's extremely profitable. They don't care that consumers are paying far too much for goods, and they are not doing what they say they're doing, which is focusing 100% on consumers. They're focused 100% on utilizing their market power to extract every bit of profit that they can.
So the question, obviously, you have to ask is how do they get away with this? And what I would like you to focus on, if you can, Attorney General Racine, is how Amazon's dominant market position contributes to this kind of pricing power that's then felt throughout our economy.
Well, I think the example with the headphones that I gave and that you accentuated, frankly, and made better, is the best example. And that is that what Amazon does is it artificially builds its commissions and fees into a product. It ensures that that embedded profit that it has, frankly, continues throughout the electronic mini mall or major mall in such a way that no one, not even you nor me, the creator of our own headphones, can sell our headphones for cheaper than what Amazon and we essentially were forced to agree to sell it at. And why do we engage in that agreement? Because they own 50 to 70% of the marketplace. Look at it as a toll booth keeper. If the road only leads to the toll booth keeper can raise those prices, and you as the driver have no choice but to pay whatever they're asking if you're trying to get down that road. We think that's illegal. We appreciate the work of this great committee. We're going to make law in the courts, and we look forward to helping with respect to legislation.
Well, I very much appreciate that because I appreciate your point about 50 to 70% of the marketplace that they already own. And yet, Amazon keeps growing. And they don't just grow by sales, they continue to acquire. So back in May, Amazon announced its proposed acquisition of MGM Studios. That would be an $8.45 billion deal. Now, I wrote a letter to the FTC commissioners asking them to review the deal thoroughly and to evaluate how the deal might affect workers and prices in other markets in the Amazon ecosystem. Mr. Lynn, even if the FTC wanted to oppose this huge merger, it would be a challenge to successfully block it, notwithstanding everything that we've already heard from the Attorney General and that others have testified about. Can you explain why that is?
Yes, thank you, Senator. Well, first, it's going to be very expensive in terms of the time, for this limited staff that the FTC has. I mean, they're going up against the richest corporation in the world, the most powerful corporation in the world, a corporation that can throw wrench after wrench after wrench into the mechanism. It's also very expensive in terms of the expertise they have to pay for, economic expertise. I mean, they have to put millions and millions of dollars often into the kitty to pay for economists. And this is even with President Biden's renunciation of the Bork consumer welfare philosophy, the legacy, because of the nature of the law, the legacy of the consumer welfare philosophy and this focus on efficiency continues to shape how the judiciary is going to look at this issue, and they have to be ready with this very expensive expertise. Third reason, it's just very difficult to communicate with judges in the stylized language of consumer welfare, of efficiency. You know, it's like, this is an issue of power. It's an issue of democracy. It's an issue of human liberty. And they're being said, we have to talk about this in terms of efficiency. You know, judges are trained to use common sense to enforce the law, to ensure rule of law. And when you're using consumer welfare framing, you're speaking in nonsense.
Well, I really appreciate that. You know, you noted earlier that President Biden has selected two outstanding experts, Lena Khan and Jonathan Cantor, to lead the antitrust efforts at the FTC and at DOJ. These are people who believe in competition, and they're going to build strong cases. But Congress needs to do its part. We need to make sure that they have the resources, and we need to make sure that they have the tools to be able to wage these battles. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to see companies like Amazon squeeze consumers no matter who's president or no matter whatever crisis of the day we are dealing with. So I think it's important that we step up on our side, too. Thank you. Senator Cassidy, back to you.
Thank you. It appears 5-minute limits